As always, appreciate your time and joining the webinar here today. And we apologize, this is the first one that we've had here to kick off 2025. I promise there will be several more here over the next 6 months into the end of the year. So we're excited to see you for some of those opportunities as well. If you have any suggestions on webinars that you'd like to see in the future, feel free to post that in the chat. We want this to be as interactive as possible. We'll have some questions and time to go back and forth there at the end of the webinar as well, so please stay on for that. But if you do have questions throughout, please go ahead and post any questions that you have there in the chat, and we'll get to you as soon as we have a break in the action here during the webinar. If you aren't able to stay for the entire duration, if you have some colleagues that may want to hear the webinar after, we'll have the recording available for you. But with that, I guess we can go ahead and get things started. And joining me today is going to be our Director of Quality, Phil Kirsch, and Laura Joldersma is a Product Manager here at DFnet. And I'm Anthony Veracali, I'm Director of Sales, and really looking forward to the conversation today. Just a little bit of background before I get things started here and hand it over to Phil and Laura. I'd like to take a moment to set the stage for us, touch on additional areas in which our team can support you. DFnet's headquartered in the US. We have offices in Canada as well as South Africa, and we've been in the data management space for roughly 30 years, 20 of which have been utilizing our own software known as DFdiscover, and pairing our CDMS with the additional professional services that we offer has uniquely positioned us to be trusted experts for our partners in global health, nonprofit, as well as small, mid-sized, and large pharma research for many years. So much so that we're actually recognized as one of 4 preferred providers of the GHCC. You can see some of our team members here on the right side of the screen. So while the conversation today will mostly pertain to our EDC, I do like to show this slide, just to provide awareness of the additional areas that we can partner with you. Beyond the SaaS, of course. On the left side, you can see some of our SaaS solutions, including ePro, eConsent, randomization, and others. And perhaps maybe you've been impacted by the recent changes in our economy and you find yourselves in a scenario where there's some turnover, or maybe there's a project coming up in your pipeline that needs an extra set of hands to manage data, or maybe provide some biostats work. However, we have some DFnet team members that can actually be deployed on your team where needed to help fill some of those gaps on a month-to-month basis, just to support your team as needed. Some of the services can be provided, including, database build and setup. We can do creating SAPs, randomization plans. We can do clinical coding, TLF support, and much more. So if any of those services might be useful to you, please go ahead and drop a message in the chat, or you can reach out to any DFnet team member, and I'll be sure to follow up with you separately after the webinar here. So with that, now joining me, just take a further look here into our webinar today with EDC compliance. Please welcome Laura Joldersma.
Thanks, Anthony. All right, so let's start with why compliance is important, since that's what we're here to talk about today. At a really basic level, when you're collecting data for a clinical trial, you need to follow the rules set out by regulatory bodies such as the ICH, FDA, Health Canada, and so on, if you're going to use that data for a regulatory submission. The regulatory oversight is designed to ensure that your trial data is credible. But not all trials are going to require or be part of a regulatory submission. But compliance is important anyways, because all data matters. Every study contributes a piece to the puzzle of our understanding of global health, and it's an important part of our community effort to advance healthcare. Compliance is essential for producing high-quality data so that your research results make a meaningful impact at the end of the day. Here's a way to think about working within a regulatory environment. If you've been to a beach recently that has a risk of rip currents or rip tides, you might have seen a warning like this. And I think it's a helpful image to think about working with regulations and compliance in clinical data management. If you get caught in a rip current, it's important that you don't panic and that you understand what you're working with. You don't want to fight the current. What you want to do is either swim parallel to the shore or sort of at an angle to the shore, or you swim out past the current to get outside of it and escape it. So in order to get safely back to shore, you can't just follow your instincts to fight against the thing that seems scary. You want to understand what you're working with and apply that knowledge to the actions you take. So if you sort of apply that idea to clinical research, regulations can feel a little bit like a riptide sometimes, something that can make you fight or struggle. And it can seem kind of scary or threatening to have to deal with these types of things as you embark. You know, clinical research by itself is difficult enough without all of these regulations and compliance issues to address. But you don't want to fight the regulations. You want to understand what you're working with and use them to your advantage. They can really help in ensuring data integrity and also bring efficiency into your research processes, even though that might seem counterintuitive. So you want to be able to read these signs, listen to your safety experts on the beach to help you safely reach shore at the end of your study. So one of the essential standards in clinical research is ICH GCP, and recently revision 3 came out, I think in January. There are specific laws, such as 21 CFR Part 11, that also govern electronic systems used in clinical research, and privacy laws, such as HIPAA, GDPR, as well as PIPEDA in Canada, govern the use of personal information about study participants and others involved in the research. So these laws and standards need to be implemented by people who are following processes, such as standard operating procedures, and then supported by the software that you choose. There are also standards beyond clinical research that additionally support compliance, so such as ISO 27001 for IT security management systems and ISO 9001 for quality management systems. These provide additional certification that your organization and its system meet internationally recognized standards. Even though they fall outside of the clinical research environment of standards, they also support all of this work that we're doing. And all of these pieces work together. So it's not enough to just follow the regulations by itself. There's this whole ecosystem that helps support meeting these regulations and standards. If you already have data systems in place for your research, how do you know whether or not you're compliant? There are a lot of tools available, different types of EDCs and data capture tools from Excel to REDCap. But software by itself isn't enough to make sure that you're compliant. Some of the common concerns that we've seen around compliance systems are the accessibility and readability of audit trails, electronic signatures, managing multiple data sources, the different data integrity measures you have in place. But it's not just the features and the functionality that are available within a specific tool. But like I said, it's a whole ecosystem that determines how compliant your system is. So you might be using data management tools now that are working for you, but at a certain point you want to think about graduating to a system that really addresses these compliant concerns. So using a CDMS that is purpose-built for regulated clinical research to make sure that you're not just addressing the requirements for regulatory submissions, but also ensuring the integrity, security of your data, and ensuring clear traceability and governance. So we've broken down what goes into a compliant EDC system into 4 different elements that we're going to talk about today. So first, compliance creates trust. Being able to prove your compliance with sponsors, regulators, funding agencies, investigators, and so on will build the trust that you need to successfully execute your research. Second, experience increases speed. Efficiency is key in clinical trials. We're always so time crunched to get the work done and deliver those results. And so experience with regulations and a proven track record of compliance will help you get there. Third, functionality supports flexibility. Clinical trials come in all shapes and forms, so it's essential that your system has all the functionality that your research needs. And finally, planning ensures completeness. Ensuring all your data has been captured, all your signatures are completed, all steps have been executed. It's essential that you have a plan and an experienced team to actually execute on that plan in order to get to the finish line of your study. So we're going to dive deeper into each of these 4 elements, and I'm going to pass it off to Phil now to get us started.
I'd like to begin by discussing how compliance creates trust. Just as a diploma provides a simple, widely recognized way to document a person's education, regulatory compliance shows any observer that your data can be trusted. In addition to regulations, various standards have been established by independent bodies. That's another way to show your stuff quickly. At DFnet, we maintain ISO 9001 certification to show that our quality management system is complete, and ISO 27001 certification to show that our security meets common expectations. But regulatory compliance is where any scientist needs to begin to establish the trustworthiness of their data. Let's briefly discuss several important aspects. First, security is essential to provide privacy for data subjects and eliminate opportunities for fraud. But of course, security involves more than keeping the bad guys away from your data. It includes ensuring that your data is available even if something breaks in your primary data center. Second, audit trails are a way to prove the veracity of each data element. That's why compliant audit trails are required by the US FDA and almost every regulatory agency in the world. This is the best way to prove that the data is legitimate, not the result of a computer error or fraud. Finally, validation is how you prove that a computerized system accomplishes what you meant for it to do. Let's take a minute to consider how DFdiscover builds trust in each of these ways. Our system encrypts data in transit and at rest. We support multi-factor authentication, which is the most secure system currently available. Our servers lock an account and notify administrators after 5 failed login attempts, so it's difficult for anyone to keep trying a password until they crack it. We rely on Microsoft's physical security and firewalls to protect the hardware our servers run on. We configure and follow daily backups and Azure site recovery in case regional disasters impact the data center. We patch systems weekly and upgrade them regularly. We conduct regular penetration testing, and we've completed ISO 27001 certification. DFdiscover access controls are central to both privacy and compliance. DFdiscover supports role-based access, configured independently for each study. Permissions can be configured individually for every tool, functionality, or report. Each CRF can include hidden fields, viewable subject of the people who can view the rest of the page. Sites can be limited to seeing only the participants they enroll, and our system maintains a complete history of when each user was added to the system, what permissions they had, and when any changes were made. Finally, DFdiscover enables inactivation of user accounts. That makes it easy to connect each user ID to the one individual without allowing continued access by someone who should no longer have it. However, audit trail is 21 CFR 11 compliant. The system automatically and immutably logs all modifications. This ensures full traceability of data changes. The system also includes reason for change functions that can capture explanations for revisions when needed. Not only is it human readable, but it can be viewed for one page at a time or exported to Excel for easy formatting and searching. DFdiscover also includes an electronic signature module that helps investigators sign off on the veracity of their data or anything else that needs to be authorized or that a user needs to attest to. Remember that a signature is nothing more than a known person agreeing to terms or attesting to a statement on a particular date and time. The key features provided by DFdiscover's electronic signature module are authentication, a combination of user ID and password to verify a person's identity, access control to limit signed pages to authorized users, and binding to permanently link each signature to a record. DFdiscover displays 3 components of any signature: the signer's full name, the date and time the page was signed, the meaning of the signature, and any attempt to tamper with the signature creates a visible error. The audit trail logs all data related to the record, including the signature. At DFnet, we validate every minor version of our software to meet regulatory expectations. Of course, validation begins with requirements, what the computerized system should do. From there, we capture design, an explanation of how the system meets the requirements, assess and mitigate risks inherent in the design, complete testing and link each requirement to a successful test. Only then does our management approve our software for production use. The complete validation package includes IQ, installation qualification, to show that the software was installed as intended, OQ, that's operational qualification, to show that individual functions work correctly, and PQ, production qualification, to show that the system can run effectively at scale with the number of users expected. And we maintain version control to track any changes required and ensure that they don't impact data integrity. The second thing I hope that you take away from this webinar is that DFnet Research has the experience and the expertise to make your trial faster and more efficient. DFnet has multiple staff members with more than 30 years experience managing clinical trials. Our CEO was among the first to create a system to electronically transmit CRF images from Africa to North America in 1997. We've provided EDC via tablets since 2015. Our ePro solution provides secure data input even when a device is offline. Once connectivity is restored, data can be uploaded to the central server and exported from there to SAS or Excel. No matter where your trial is running, we have experience working in that type of environment. In fact, during the past 30 years, our staff has supported more than 160 trials in more than 35 countries on every inhabited continent. We're a trusted partner of the Global Health Clinical Consortium, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and the National Institutes of Health. Our team members are located across 5 time zones in the United States, Canada, and South Africa, and our solutions include EDC, ePro, online and offline data capture, and the processing of paper-based CRFs when needed. Our expertise includes both data management and data science. We know how to collect data and how to analyze it. Our data managers review each clinical protocol in light of applicable regulations and use our standard operating procedures to create study documentation, define a study database, set up automated scheduling expectations, customize consistency checks, establish role-based access for authorized users, test the entire setup, and document approvals before study go live. We help you start your trial quickly and finish on time. And let me turn this back to Laura.
Thanks, Phil. So the third element of a compliant EDC system is that functionality supports flexibility. So it's essential that you're choosing a clinical data management system that has the tools that meet your study protocol and data workflow needs. If you're capturing data from multiple sources, or if your study protocol lays out a complex visit schedule, your CDMS needs to address these needs. And you need a system that allows you to ensure the quality of your data following risk-based principles, and to ensure that your data is fit for purpose. So as Phil mentioned, one of our key functionality is electronic data capture for everything from entering data and updating data, query management, source data review, medical coding, data review, and investigator sign-off. Our web-based EDC supports data capture on laptops, tablets, and mobile phones, so you can enter and review data from wherever you are. And whether you're using direct data capture or transcription, importing data from other sources, or setting up integrations with other systems is one database and one underlying database schema. We also provide, as Phil mentioned, a separate app specifically for offline electronic data capture. For research that's conducted in some locations where internet connectivity can be a challenge, we provide a tablet-based offline EDC app that uses the same database definition, same eCRFs as the online EDC tools. So all the EDC functionality that you're used to in an online system are also available offline. So all of the same data checks, the source document capture, query resolution, and electronic signatures are all available offline. If you need to make mid-study changes like CRF updates or protocol amendments, those all become available on the online devices once that's published to production. In case of any conflicts between different people entering or updating subject data, there's a conflict resolution workflow that ensures any discrepancies are reviewed and resolved. For studies that capture data on paper CRFs or use other source documents, DFdiscover supports image-based data capture so that a scanned copy of the original source document is used for data entry, assisted by optical character recognition for efficiency, and is stored in the database right alongside the data so that it remains available for monitoring and quality control as the trial continues. Although a lot of trials are reliant on EDC now, even with the availability of offline EDC, there's still a place for paper-based data capture in some trials in some locations. We also provide a integration ePro mobile app for collecting surveys, questionnaires, e-diaries directly from study participants. So this helps reduce in-person visits and phone calls and can also help address data quality and adherence challenges when you're relying on patients to, say, fill out their diary in between their study visits. Because our ePro module is fully integrated with the CDMS, in the same study, you could have patients that are filling out paper questionnaires, completing them by phone with a study nurse, or using the ePro app. If the ePro app doesn't work for all participants, depending on your patient population. So you don't have separate tools or a separate setup process for all of these different types of data capture. It's all one database. We also provide an e-consent module, which lets you skip the paper consent form and improve patient experience using a digital informed consent process. The e-consent system integrates with DFdiscover so that the consent data is captured directly in the EDC without the sites having to manually enter that data. And we also provide a randomization module that supports both static and adaptive randomization algorithms and enables randomization from anywhere, so through the EDC itself or by phone or by text. So if you're looking for a new EDC vendor, one of the things you may need to consider is how to migrate your data from your existing system into the new system. And DFnet can handle that in a few different ways. We have a tool that imports your database set up from an Excel file. So that enables you to use your existing database schema and sort of translate that into the DFdiscover definition and import that all in one go to create your new database, which can really save time with database setup. We also provide a few different data import options. So there's a self-service data import tool if you are importing data using simple mapping options, but we also have more powerful backend tools that will support a full ETL process if that's required for your trials. We also have an API that can enable integration with external systems, for example, electronic health records and central labs. But the functionality available in the software isn't enough, as we've mentioned. Planning is an important part of ensuring that your data is fit for purpose and ready for analysis and regulatory submission or publication. So at DFnet, planning involves comprehensive study plans to document how data will be captured and analyzed, applying CDISC standards, implementing study scheduling, and taking a risk-based approach to ensure data quality. The latest revision of the ICH GCP standard focuses a lot on risk-based quality management, which kind of in a nutshell means identifying what's the most important data and focusing your efforts there. Real-time data monitoring tools will help you identify risk and anomalies early in the process and throughout the trial. Automation is really important for quickly identifying issues and managing them according to how you've identified the risks of your trial. Relying on manual processes will slow you down in a lot of cases. But for this, you need a system that can be configured to help you identify the most important data, manage and resolve issues in a clear and unambiguous way, and automate your monitoring processes to ensure compliance. Clinical data management is a complex process, and an experienced team is really essential to working from the initiation phase right through to your closeout phase. There's a lot of words on this slide that many of you as data managers will be deeply familiar with, from planning the data workflow, setting up the randomization system, performing clinical coding, setting up email alerts, tracking source data verification. All these things are need to be done to keep the study moving forward, and oversight is really important to keep the study on track. DFdiscover's data management capabilities make it easier to execute on your study plans. It provides built-in query management tools to ensure that all data problems and their corrections are fully documented and audited. Interactive checks ensure that the data is as clean as possible at the point of data entry, really saving time on cleaning as you go ahead through the study. So whether you're just checking that the data value itself is valid, or whether you're doing cross-checks with data on other pages or at other visits, the checks within DFdiscover will support that process. We also provide a batch edit check process that lets you run edit checks in batch that will identify issues across the entire database so that you have the peace of mind to know that you haven't missed any problems during data capture. DFdiscover provides several reporting options within the application, including customizable dashboards, charts and graphs, and data listings that interact directly with the CRF data in the EDC system. These reports can be exported for review outside of the EDC as well. DFdiscover provides flexible export tools for developing reports outside the EDC as well. So for example, with Power BI. And the visit scheduling tools in DFdiscover are designed to really handle all sorts of complex scenarios in terms of how your study protocol may require visits and procedures. So whether you have different cohorts in your study, following different schedules, or participant treatment schedules that may change according to different components of the study, the system will ensure that you're not missing any single form. Automated queries get applied for overdue visits as well as missing CRF pages to make sure that you're not missing everything, and centralizing the query resolution process for the research staff. And the EDC also ensures that research staff only see the data available for entry, so excluding any visits and pages that aren't required. So for example, in this example of a screen failure, you won't see those actual study visits show up if you've failed the screening process. And the planning, that's just a touch of what the planning involves. There are so many components and strategies for ensuring that your data meets ALCOA and is fit for purpose, depending on your study phase, your data sources, your patient population, and so many other considerations. Having the right software with the right functionality is really important, but working with a partner like DFnet who understands clinical data management inside out ensures that you have the right plans developed and executed for your trial to get the answer to your research question and continue driving research forward. I'm going to turn it now to Anthony to wrap things up.
Perfect. Thank you, Phil and Laura. That was a great presentation. Just to wrap things up here again, it's time to graduate to a compliant EDC system when you begin to prepare for regulatory submissions, anticipate increased oversight, need to manage clinical complexity, want to build research data infrastructure for the long term. Perhaps you're looking to become a little bit more efficient with the solution that you're using. Or maybe perhaps you're not wanting your data to change hands when choosing a CRO and you'd like to keep all of your information within one solution. And that's where you can certainly look to move towards an EDC that's compliant and not open source. All right. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Phil, again. Thank you for everyone for joining. It looks like there's a couple more questions here in the chat. We can follow up here after the webinar. Please stay tuned for some of the other webinars that'll be coming out here. We're trying to do one every other month or so. So stay tuned for that and feel free to share internally with some of your colleagues. But again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and out of your busy schedules. Looking forward to catching up with you offline. Thank you, everyone.